Hi, this is Colorful Foresight where we intuitively connect from within. And it's woo woo time where we connect our woo woo into our mundane living. Hi, this is Sylvia of Colorful Foresight, and here we have Dance with Angela.
Hi, Sylvia.
Hello, Angela.
Hello.
But this topic's a little
racy, sexy.
Yes, what do you have in mind for us? Let's make sure to let everybody know it's for your entertainment purposes only.
Yes.
And take in what resonate with you. So the topic's going to be on, let me see, the very long topic. Okay. New priorities. Young people in the USA and other parts of G20 countries, Japan, South Korea, having less sex. Really? Could this be a good thing? Having joy without sex? Now, I'm going to leave that to Angela. Angela, before we do that, not only she teaches dance, but because she's very intuitive, it's a whole different level. So real quick, how that's a little different than the average dance classes?
Yeah, it's about connection. So I've been doing different exercises from Qigong, body and mind centering, contact dance. And I also discovered through world dance how they open up the heart. So Dance for Joy and all of the workshops I do are all about the heart and how it connects through the dance and through others. So we do a lot of interactive exercises. And if I work online with people as well, we just learn how to connect to your own heart and what that is, because there's so much there. I've discovered this whole universe in people's heart, and it's incredible. So I want to share more and more of that, and that's my work for the rest of my life, basically, Dance for Joy.
How can we add that whole idea of Dance for Joy to the topic about new priorities, having joy without sex? I mean, that all related. I mean, people use so many different ways how they find pleasure through food, through, creativity. There's so many ways to connect with nature. With you, with dance. So what came to your mind when you showed the topic?
A very interesting part of my contemplation, which I started when I was young, before I knew what sex was. So as a child, for me, dance was about connecting with people, regardless of age, gender, nationality, color, or body ableness or not, size. So what is that? What is the connection when it's not sex? That's what I'd like to talk about with you and get other people watching to talk about. What is connection? Who are we connecting to?
One of the idea that I had the connection with a person, and what is that phrase called? Sapio something, where
precognition. No,
I'll put it in somewhere over here. It's a term called sapio something, where it's like our connection, even though we like each other that way, but it's more about the mind. And I've been connecting with this person through that way. So that's another way of having joy without sex.
And it's not platonic. It means, sapiosexual, is it?
Yes. You can. Right. Let me bring it up. Let me read it. I mean, I'll just edit out a pausing. But I'm going to read it.
In the old days, remember Plato's a platonic love.
Yeah.
And agape was love of divine. There's lots of words that in the past they talked about love. I think there's something else going on with this new reduction in sex drive and desire to have babies, because that's the fundamental thing. Is it's not that just they're not having sex, they're not having babies. So they're not replacing themselves with a little version of themselves, a mini me, and they need to get connection. For what purpose? And you go on about sapiosexual, because that's about the mind. And what's that, Sylvia?
Yeah, it's like finding intelligent, sexual, attractive, or arousing. Like you ever just connect with somebody. Maybe it doesn't have to be sapiosexual, but you just connect, and that's exciting when you have that moment.
Yeah. I mean, I could say that about you.
Right, and that's the platonic type of thing. And then now we could talk in context of sex, having joy without sex. No mistake that now, if you notice, the kids are using this. Yes. Remember, it used to be about this?
Peace. Right.
So now it changed
rock and roll.
Yeah, now it's about this. We don't know what's going to be after that. Right. Yeah. So it's like we're going from intellectual thing to now we're over here more. But in a moment, too sexualized. So I think we want to like bring it back over here again, right?
Yeah, well, there's the extremes happening. So we're having over-sexualization like porn, and we're having kids doing things way younger than they used to that we would not even be able to imagine. So there's that extreme. And then we're having this asexual drive, which is not from being asexual, but from not wanting to have that effort. They also have a reduced sperm count. They've done that in some G20 countries. It's still, the research is out there, but the sperm count is less. The libido is less.
But you're talking about young people. Are they really having less sex?
Yeah, statistically, yeah. That
Isn't that
definitely in
having?
Japan and South Korea, yeah, for sure, and the USA. Bill Maher was talking about it in the US.
But is it less sex, or is it well, I think you mentioned the asexual thing.
It's not just that. I mean, some people are watching more porn, so they don't go looking for a physical partner. So porn's a big reason why there's less actual sex with a person, because they're not sexually motivated to find someone. And there's not a lot of robots yet, but that's in the pipeline. So people are doing sexting with artificial intelligent chatbots. So there's a lot of that intimacy as well. So it's not just sex, but say you want a romantic relationship. So in Japan, there's a lot of places where you can get someone to just hold your hand and talk to you nice. That's actually an industry in Japan. You don't have to have sex with the prostitute there. There's these women that are paid to go to a bar with you, and you buy them drinks. And the drinks may be non-alcoholic, so you
And you
don't
think
have
that
to
had
get
to do
wasted.
with the change of the hormonal system? Like, what came to mind is that because of like AI and all that, it actually, like in some cases, people live in two different worlds, or that
Yeah,
it forces you to connect in so many different ways versus
yeah,
sexually.
yeah,
Like, I could see myself connecting with somebody online, and we're having a good connection. We have to get creative, not just utilizing the sexual aspect, being like, but like mentally, like really connecting. It could be a good thing, this less sex thing,
yeah.
but it's not saying not having sex. It's just because of the new resources, how we connect. It creating. I don't know where I'm going with this, Angela, but
I
I'm
just need
feeling
to
it.
thank you, because I just got an aha moment, because you're saying with all of this virtual, not even AI, but just technology like we're using now, it's giving me another way of relating versus just being person to person. So it's giving me a different aspect of relating. So I don't necessarily look for that physical aspect. And that different aspect, like we're moving into the Aquarian age, it's about being connected, but not necessarily having sex, but the connection's more important than the sex. It can also mean, on a negative side, that we do porn addictively, but it can also mean I'm
and
not.
it could create loneliness, because
Uh,
as fun it is, after all, you need that one-on-one. However, because I would think if you started that way, I would think it really brings joy. Like, once, like, let's say I met this person, I've been talking for years, he lived on the other side of the world, so we've been connecting like this. So now I'm lonely because it only could go so far, like without the physical, right? But now
ah,
that we meet, we've been connecting in this level. And now we're going to add like a physical thing. But because we had so much of this, I would think it brings more depth into sexuality, you
right.
know, because once you have the sex and you have fun, then what? You have like 22 hours a day doing something else. But
Yeah.
we've been connecting like this. So, like you said, then maybe we'll start holding hands, or we'll start talking, So the less sex might be a good thing. I know you mentioned like the other spectrum, which is the porn and things like that. But we're just working on the pendulum thing.
Yeah.
Um,
It reminds me of in the medieval times, when you weren't allowed to touch a girl. until you were married, right? It's almost like you need to go back to how do we connect without making the person be just a physical person. There's all these other parts of their personality I need to honor, and I need to see, and I need to imagine what it would be like to have connection. So the sonnets were all fantasies about, I will have this connection. And maybe having less sex now in the kids is giving them the opportunity to see, oh, what would it be like to connect? What would it be like to have a special relationship with someone and to be nice to that person? What's tenderness? What is affection? What do I imagine? So the sonnets were all about imagination and fantasy.
I think it could be a good thing. I think, again, then eventually it's like, do we want to connect on that level where it's physical? And it still could be less sex, because by then I mentioned we have this whole other dynamic. They can maybe connect through music,
Yeah.
together. Yeah, it's very interesting, this topic. I don't know what to make of it, so I'm going to just shuffle cards, see what our collective spirit guide have for all of us that's listening in. I think goes back to, like Dan, we always talk about it, the good and the bad of how we connect. Hopefully, as we continue to evolve, any challenging situation, we could work through it, like dance, dancing in the rain. Like, you hear all that phrases.
One thing I found interesting, because I grew up in the 70s where sex was really in your face and I didn't know what it was. I was a kid.
Right.
Pre-puberty. Things like Saturday Night Fever, if you watch that film again, it's pretty full on and magical as well, but it's a bit full on for me. And now I feel, back then it was about boy meets girl. And then you can change the genders. It's still about two people. And then what I feel like now, it's more about, like, you've got a collective, a generation, that it's more about us versus just one-on-one. And that could mean that you have several partners, or you have one person that you really connect to, but you might have intimacy physically with others. It has that polyamory piece as well, but it's like, it doesn't have to just be about one person and you're obsessed about making that work, but it's about, there's more awareness about the group and intimacy as a collective. That's for Dance with Joy as well. One of the things we do is, what's a collective feeling, the group connection? What is a community?
So I was just bringing up cards to maybe bring a little more clarity. I don't know if it's going to help, but the Nine of Wands, it's creating the boundaries, I feel like. Because like you said, we're seeing right now, like, the total opposite. Either too it's like too much out there. Or if you notice, the kids nowadays, they're actually more calmer, they're more wiser, and they're not like party animals, even though
No.
there's problems and all that. That's a different kind of thing, but it's different than like their parents, where their parents like, come on, have fun. And they're like, no, it's just to watch the movie.
I want to go to bed early. And you're like,
yeah.
what?
Or like, have some alcohol. And they're like, no, we have these like,
almond milk. Oh, yeah.
seltzer, flavors. Yeah. And it's very interesting. Like, we have that thing going on. So it's a boundary thing somehow with the sexuality. Even though we're seeing that dichotomy, like we're seeing it too much, like there's so much twerking going on, or we're seeing like both. But this is a conversation. We're just having a conversation. I feel like we're experiencing sexuality in a different way. When I look at this, I think of the chakra. Maybe our lower chakra are evolving. Our lower chakra. So this idea to say about the seventh chakra, the lower and the higher, they're different. The lower chakra is going to be different going forward, because everything evolved, everything goes up. As we evolve,
you got it.
Right?
Yeah.
Animals gonna evolve, human gonna evolve, plant gonna evolve. That means our lower chakra is gonna be higher than it's been.
Yeah.
It's still going
We're
to be
not going
lower.
to be compulsive and run by this hormonal system that's always based on producing babies. We're going to be like, yeah, well, what is this about? Yeah, it's about our hearts. But we won't be compulsive, because if you look at Saturday Night Fever, that's compulsive, the way that they were relating in the 70s. And to me, even in the 90s, I watched it a few years ago as well. It was a bit like confronting. I was like, oh, that's not exactly, yeah, it was like that though. And now the relationships are more like what you're saying, the boundaries, and like, can I even, is it okay? Would you like to, hey, I think I like you. I don't know. You know, you have to verbalize everything before you can do anything. You can't just lunge at someone and kiss them. And it's less primal and more considerate. And that's the next generations are just more considerate in general.
And, you know, it would be funny because I could see some people going, are you kidding? Like the younger generation are wild. But again, we're talking about the two spectrum.
Two
We're
spectrum,
seeing
yeah.
like, you know, the wild, like we're seeing the women are very open and the men are just like whatever, blah. But we're seeing that. So what happened, I feel like it's going to go like this somehow. Again, it had to do with spirituality. Uh, um, Sex is a spiritual thing. So we've been lacking that spiritual thing into sex. We're not talking about tantra, because even tantra have been abused when it comes. So it's like a whole different way how we see sexuality, hopefully in a good way. You hear about like, if we talk about spirituality, like different advanced society, they don't have sex or they have sex in a different way. You hear about certain ETs that they don't have the idea of sex the way we think. Their sex is more like, well, we don't know, but it's more like the avatar.
They have different organs and they do have different ways
So
of
it's an
procreating.
evolution thing. It makes sense. I would think evolve.
Yeah. I'll make a reference to this goddess Akka Mahadevi. I'll see if I can get the link to her. But she's one of the first women in India to run away from her husband and reject marriage, take off all her clothes and meditate on a lingam. And I'll do a video on Dance with Angela. I haven't done it yet on lingams, but they're basically a rock in the earth that's formed like a phallus. And to a Western consciousness, we'd be going, yeah, right, baby. But it's not about that. It's about the energy vortex of the earth itself represents a spiritual energy of the earth, like in devas or earth spirits, earth magic. And she actually meditates on this rock. And it is said, this is from the 1200s, she disappeared into the rock. But her love is for that rock, her erotic, it's very erotic too. And she's like got this spiritual love, agape, we say from Plato, but it's more like she becomes one with the rock. And that rock represents, I think it's Shiva. And she marries Shiva in her consciousness. So that lingam is actually represented in the chakras, and it's a way of her relating to the chakras. And this woman's from 1,000 years ago, almost, but she's a saint in the Hindu tradition, and she represents love in a way of saying, I don't have to just love a man and be a wife. This is the love I want. She made a choice. And I think that's the other thing about boundaries now. Like there's more, instead of compulsively just getting our rocks off, there's an ability to be more conscious about our sexuality. And I don't mean like I'm doing really great orgasms. I mean, actually, how am I using my body? How am I using my desire? Because she was very devotional. That's why I connect to her, because I love devotion. And I can just, make love to a flower. I can just love a flower.
It makes sense. We were talking about the lower chakra. Usually the first two, it's about the sexuality thing, but it also could be about creativity. So if all of our chakra are evolving, so to speak, that means including the lower to higher, going like as we grow, right? We have the same situation we see, but as we grow, we see that situation differently. It's still the same. So that means the root chakra is still there, but as we evolve, that root chakra shows up in a different way. I mean, you ever have like what they would show me? Like, you ever have a good day? Everything is vibing great. You don't even need drugs for it. It's kind of
Yeah,
like you take the stoma.
Soma.
It's just like you're driving, right? Your hair is blowing and you're just having that good vibration. So if you're with that other person with that different kind of energy, it wouldn't have to be about sex per se. It could be about just connecting, like that. It's kind of like that. So that's great. If that's what's happening, it's all good. We're just talking conceptually, but hopefully as we listen to the video, we start experiencing it. Right? Once you hear something, you can ask your divine, can I experience what it's like to connect on a different level, like having joy without needing like to be happy for it, just be joyful for no reason, whatever that means, like causeless happiness. I see the temperament, and it's just saying the planetary is evolving. Hopefully we thrive versus not thrive. In the disappointment, sometimes when you have disappointment, it pushes you to see things in a different way. So that could be like with sexuality, like because sex could be a great thing and it could be not great thing. So hopefully maybe with this young people having less sex and they're experiencing joy with another in a different way, that could bring an opening to the lower chakra in a nice creative way of connecting.
I'm so excited you brought up that transformation of how we relate to the lower chakras. That's really helped me have more compassion for someone who might be a bit disappointed. Oh, I'm not having a relationship or not having sex. But actually you could be discovering yourself, and that's a place of joy when you let yourself go into that discovery. And a person came to mind when you talked about it. It's a musician I know, and when they play music, they're just happy. So that was the image I got. I just got somebody who's just living their life, playing the play, doing the playing the vibes, and that's living.
That's great. That's like somebody who's just cooking or something.
Yeah, it's just being in that moment and what really gives you joy, and that's what came to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh my God. I don't know. That was I'm curious like what we get out of it when we watch it. You know how it always shows up the right time?
I got a lot. I don't know, but my brain was popping.
I get a lot, but it's always like when I release them, it's always timely, like you said.
Yeah.
You know how you always like, oh my God, I forgot about that video. It's so timely. What about that video we did on Jesus and Christ consciousness, and then it came out that
spinning out. And then you had the little Jesus figure on the thumbnail, and just a little Jesus there making me crack up. I was like, oh, look at him there. He's like a little Valhalla. He looks a bit Valhalla-esque, except his hands are like this. Like,